I want to talk about last night's speech and of course get your thoughts on it too. But number one, and I'll say this very quickly because I'm going to come back to it in great detail afterwards. This, in my opinion, I tweeted this last night. I said this is the best presidential speech I've seen since Jack Kennedy's inaugural address in 1961, on January 20th, 1961. We have not had a Democratic president. Jimmy Carter came close to it when he talked about energy, but of course they just ripped him apart. But we have not had a president talk like this really since Lyndon Johnson and Medicare, or Jack Kennedy proposing a national health care system, saying, you know, other countries do this, why can't we? It's FDR, JFK, LBJ. We are back to Democrats being Democrats, at least in the White House. And that, to me, is just mind-bogglingly encouraging. And as I said, in a few minutes, I'm just going to go through all the details of what he's saying and how he's planning to pay for it and what it all is. But the Republican rebuttal was the thing that made me crazy. You know, Louise and I sat there and watched Senator Tim Scott, the only black senator, Republican senator in the United States Senate, and pitched this idea in his own words, quote, America is not a racist nation. Now, I get it that this is the official kind of Republican mantra. This is what John Roberts said when he gutted the Voting Rights Act. And what happened? Within weeks, actually in some cases within days, but mostly within weeks, states all over the South started putting into place laws that were federally illegal because of the Voting Rights Act that was passed unanimously in the Senate just a few years earlier, but had been gutted by the conservatives on the Supreme Court. That within weeks they were passing laws to make it harder for black people to vote. So, you know, America's not a racist nation. That was the sales pitch from the Supreme Court. That's the sales pitch from Republicans in Congress for everything from, you know, reparations on one end to, hey, let's just improve our schools, or let's enforce the laws about employment on the other end. You know, there's just a pile of stuff there in the middle, obviously, that includes policing. But this, I mean, this has been their sales pitch, and if it were true, it would be wonderful. But in fact, it's a sad lie. It's a fantasy. I mean, just consider, if America is not a racist nation, as Senator Tim Scott said last night, as the official Republican rebuttal said last night, then why did we kill tens of millions of Native Americans? Why do we continue to hold their descendants in poverty? And why do we continue to steal their land? If we're not a racist nation, why are some of the most iconic buildings in Washington, D.C., including the one where the speech was held last night, built by enslaved black people? If we're not a racist nation, why was it the law in the United States up until the 1960s that races had to be separated in everything, in housing, in education, in restaurants, in stores, walking down the street? If we're not a racist nation, why was it the law right up until the mid-1960s that immigrants into this country had to have the same racial profile as this country? In other words, if we're 75% white, 75% of the immigrants coming in had to be white. Now, that changed during the Johnson administration, but now we have Republicans going, you know, we need to go back to those old immigration policies that we had. That's their idea of immigration reform. If we're not a racist nation, why is it that black people are killed disproportionately by police? I mean, seriously, when was the last time you heard a white guy say, "I can't breathe," as he was having the life choked out of him by a cop? If we're not a racist nation, why is it that people with identifiably white or black names, when they are with identical qualifications, and this has been done over and over and over again. I mean, numerous universities and other groups have, for decades have been doing this. The most recent one of these we reported on just 3 months ago in this program, where they take identical resumes, same college or equivalent college, same degree, equivalent degree. Everything's the same, except one person has a name that really sounds black and one has a name that sounds really waspy. And they submit them to 1,000 or 10,000 employers. And who gets the callbacks? The people with the white names. Who doesn't get the callbacks? The people with the black names. Same, by the way, with rental properties. If we're not a racist nation, why is the maggot movement almost entirely white? And why do they keep talking about starting a race war in America? If we're not a racist nation, why does the Justice Department say that the single most deadly terrorist threat in the United States is, and has been for years, white racists, white supremacists? If we're not a racist nation, why did the President of the United States refer to a group of Trump-loving Nazis who were responding to a story that had been all over right-wing media a couple of weeks earlier, saying that George Soros, this billionaire Jewish guy who lives in Paris right now, that George Soros was using his money to ship black refugees into the United States. And so they went out in the streets and they chanted, "Jews will not replace us," with black people was the rest of the sentence. If we're not a racist nation, why did Trump refer to those people as very fine people? If we're not a racist nation, why is it that schools in predominantly black neighborhoods don't perform as well as in white neighborhoods, even when they have white students in them? If we're not a racist nation, why is the average white family worth over $100,000 and the average black family is worth around $6,000? If we're not a racist nation, why is it that when on TV you see the occasional show where the hero, the good guy, the center of good is a black guy and the bad guy is a white guy, and we're like, whoa, that's unusual. If we're not a racist nation, why do white guys keep walking into black churches and shooting people and then taking to Burger King? Why do white people keep calling the police on black people for walking, shopping, working, bird watching, attending school, mowing their lawn, caring for their own children, driving? When was the last time that you heard about white people having the police called on them by black people and that the white people ended up dead or had their neck crushed by the cops? If we're not a racist nation, why are our billionaires and our business leaders almost entirely white? Well, it's true of the Republican Party as well. If we're not a racist nation, why are the Republicans working as hard as they can to keep black people from voting all over the country?